The Imperial colony at the edge of the map is already dead. The Administratum just does not know it yet, because the form reporting the planet's demise is sitting in a queue between a request to repair an elevator and a complaint about the wrong shade of candles in the cathedral. The orbital defense station is burning overhead. Below, under the northern continent, something is moving through the mines. First, the miners disappeared. Then the rescue teams disappeared. Then the commissar disappeared. The one who had been loudly explaining that panic was a crime against the Emperor. After that, panic apparently acquired a fairly convincing argument. In the governor's bunker, a long table. Around it sit people who have spent their entire lives training to look important. An Astra Militarum general moves little metal markers across the map with the expression of a man trying to defeat catastrophe using office supplies. A Mechanicus representative whispers prayers to the servo motors. The governor is sweating through his ceremonial uniform. The Inquisitor has been silent for 20 minutes, and that is what frightens everyone most. The governor asks for reinforcements. The fleet replies it will arrive in 8 months. The Administratum reports the request has been received and will be reviewed according to proper procedure. Guard Command promises to hold the capital for 11 days, possibly 12 if the enemy shows respect for the schedule. And then a black strike cruiser appears in orbit. No parade, no hymns, just one ship. Black is bad news. A drop pod falls from it. 8 life signs appear on the tacticals display. 8. The governor stares at the screen like a man who ordered salvation and received a suspiciously small package. He turns to the Inquisitor. Is that all? The Inquisitor finally raises his eyes. That is the Deathwatch. And in that moment, everyone in the room understands one simple thing. The Imperium is no longer trying to win the war. It has decided to remove the problem. Welcome to the Deathwatch. The Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Imperium's most elite organization, for dealing with aliens who, for some reason, continue to exist despite humanity's access to bolters, fanaticism, and 10,000 years of extremely bad mood. You have been chosen. It sounds beautiful, almost solemn. About as beautiful as the word volunteer sounds in Imperial paperwork. You were not exiled, not punished, not sent away from your chapter because your personal interpretation of acceptable collateral damage made 3 captains clutch their heads simultaneously. Officially, you were chosen. And to be fair, that is probably true. The Deathwatch does not take beginners. It takes veterans, killers, specialists, warriors, who have already lived several human lifetimes inside a war and remained intact enough to be useful afterward. Every chapter is expected to send its finest to the long vigil. In some chapters, this is the highest honor. In others, a sacred duty. In a few, a convenient opportunity to temporarily remove a brother who argues too often in council, howls too loudly before battle, or asks far too many questions about where exactly that sergeant from the neighboring company disappeared to. The Ultramarines send exemplary warriors, men who look like they are posing for a tactical manual, even in an ambush. The Space Wolves send heroes whose mere presence makes any briefing immediately smell of mead, wet fur, and an approaching disciplinary incident. The Blood Angels send veterans who have been holding back the red thirst for a very long time. In Blood Angels terminology, that means stable. In normal human terminology, it means, please do not leave him alone next to an open artery. The Dark Angels send whoever the inner circle has decided should be somewhere else for a while. Why exactly is a closed question? All questions for this inner circle are also closed. The very existence of certain questions may also be closed. And then all these people end up in the same squad. That is the central administrative genius of the Deathwatch. Take Space Marines from chapters that have spent centuries accumulating their own doctrines, grievances, rituals, traditions, secrets, mutations, superstitions, and highly specific ideas about teamwork. Put them in one compartment, give them one order, point them at a tyrannid the size of a cathedral. It works. That is the genuinely surprising part. Not because everyone suddenly becomes friendly. Put an Ultramarine and a Space Wolf at the same briefing table, and technically both of them serve the Emperor. Practically, one will be drafting a plan, while the other tries to work out whether the table can survive a punch. The Deathwatch works because the warriors sent here are experienced enough to understand that the mission matters more than chapter pride. Even when that pride has 10,000 years of ancestral voices screaming in your ear, your left arm is black now. On your right shoulder, you keep the mark of your chapter. A deliberate choice, not a formality. The Deathwatch does not erase your former life. You are still an ultramarine, still a space wolf, still a blood angel, still a dark angel to whatever degree a dark angel is willing to admit anything out loud. But another oath sits over all of that. The silver skull of the Ordo Xenos, the long vigil. Your task is straightforward. Identify the Xenos threat, determine the species, the scale of contamination, and the weak point, then destroy the target before other Imperial departments have time to understand how close everything came to catastrophe. An ordinary space marine knows how to kill the enemies of mankind. The Deathwatch knows exactly where to shoot when the enemy has 4 hearts, a chitinous breastplate, a hive mind, a phase shift, a personal force field, or the irritating habit of rising from beneath the ground after 10,000 years of sleep. You will learn to tell a dormant Necron world from one that is waking up. An important distinction. In the first case, you have a problem. In the second, everyone is about to have a problem. You will be shown the actual weak points of Tau battlesuits. Not the ones from Brave Sermons for Infantry, but the real ones. Where to shoot if you want a technologically self-satisfied alien to suddenly become acquainted with the traditional human argument known as death. You will learn to recognize a Genestealer cult before half the planet is speaking in identical phrases, smiling too synchronously, and building underground temples with a number of limbs not approved by the ecclesiarchy. And you will be sent to train. In normal training, people run, shoot at targets, and listen to an instructor. In the Deathwatch, a training ground can be a full artificial ecosystem containing live xeno specimens behind reinforced barriers. Because the best preparation for fighting a Tyranid is, according to the Deathwatch, to take a Tyranid and pretend the situation is under control. Controlled conditions for a live Tyranid. This is the point where any sensible person would request a transfer to accounting. Fortunately, you are a space marine. Your common sense was surgically replaced with duty, ceramite armor, and the ability to consider dropping into the mouth of alien biomass a form of professional development. The Deathwatch principle was born from one of those catastrophes the Imperium later spent centuries calling a valuable lesson, the War of the Beast. An orc invasion so vast it reached Terra itself. Billions of green bodies, attack moons, entire systems turned to meat grinders. For the first time in a long while, the Imperium looked at all of this and admitted that the standard solution, send more people to die, does not always work fast enough. Sometimes a problem cannot be crushed with mass. Sometimes an army is too loud, too slow, too visible. Sometimes you need a small squad of specialists that can reach where the front line cannot, strike where the fleet cannot, and kill the thing that must never be allowed onto the battlefield of a full-scale war. Chapter Master Corland of the Imperial Fists understood this, and the Deathwatch was formalized. Since then, Deathwatch fortresses have waited in the dark places of the galaxy, often near ordinary worlds whose inhabitants have no idea that overhead a black fortress has been sitting for decades, filled with space marines, inquisitorial archives, forbidden specimens, Xenos technology, and decisions nobody wants to explain in public. In one such fortress sits the Omega Vault, sealed. Whatever is inside is classified at a level that makes ordinary inquisitorial secrets look like advertising leaflets. But the real strength of the Deathwatch is not in its fortresses, its arsenals, or its secrets. It is the kill team, 5, 10, sometimes 15 space marines. Veterans of different chapters, different doctrines, different ways of making the same enemy die. Working together because the mission requires it, not because anyone asked them to get along. The Ultramarine notices the structural logic of the complex and immediately knows where the central node should be. The Space Wolf senses the ambush a second before the Auspex does. The Blood Angel charges with such momentum that even the monster looks briefly offended. The Dark Angel finds a hidden passage and mentions it only at the exact moment when everyone urgently needs a hidden passage. Shared irritation becomes over time something grudging and practical. The Ultramarine's plan saves the team from a trap. The Wolf's instinct catches an ambush the sensors missed. The Blood Angel holds a corridor that by all rights should have been lost an hour ago. The Dark Angel finds one line in a report that everyone else overlooked, and because of that line, the mission stops being suicide. You do not become each other. That would be an insult to both of you. But you remember, and then there are the Black Shields. They arrive alone. On the right pauldron, where every other Deathwatch warrior displays chapter heraldry, there is nothing. Not worn away, not damaged, deliberately removed. The watch commander meets each one privately. What passes between them stays between them permanently. Perhaps the Black Shield is the last survivor of a destroyed chapter. Perhaps an exile or someone fleeing a secret heavy enough that even the Inquisition decided not to ask too many questions. An organization that looks at a space marine without a past and asks suspicious, but can you kill Xenos? If the answer is convincing enough, he is accepted. Black Shields fight the way people fight, when they have already lost whatever was important to them. Which sounds heroic until you are standing next to one in a narrow corridor. A Xenos dealer drops from the ventilation shaft, and your battle brother decides that self-preservation is a concern for the emotionally stable. The Deathwatch gives them purpose, not forgiveness, not a new biography, just a direction for whatever is driving them. Sometimes that is enough to keep someone moving forward. Now you are part of this. You stand in the drop bay. Beside you is a brother from a chapter your captain once described as tactically questionable. Across from you is someone from a chapter your own chapter has suspected of heresy for 9,000 years, though never with enough documentation to make it official. The Black Shield stands near the door, silent with such concentrated force that even the servitor is avoiding eye contact. The commander reads the briefing. Target, unknown Xenos threat. Location, underground complex. Contamination level, critical. Support, none. Probability of return, not listed because the Deathwatch finds such numbers harmful to the working atmosphere. You check your bolter, your chainsword, your ammunition, the special type that an ordinary space marine sees perhaps once in his career. Usually 1 second before the Deathwatch takes the crate back and denies it ever existed. Rounds for specific physiologies, shells with more seals on them than the bolter has moving parts. Specialist, classified, calibrated, because ordinary war asks how much firepower is needed for the enemy to die. The Deathwatch asks which enemy exactly, what armor, what regeneration cycle, and can this be resolved with a single shot into the third auxiliary gland? This is not merely violence. This is applied xenobiology with recoil. The pod drops. Atmosphere burns outside the hull. The Vox crackles. One brother prays. One laughs. The Black Shield is silent as if even the impact is part of his personal tragedy. The doors open. Before you, a mining settlement half transformed into something alien. Walls coated in matter that should not exist. Air that moves by itself. Somewhere in the distance, people are screaming, but too evenly, as if something else has borrowed their voices. The guardsmen at the barricade look at you like saints. They are wrong. Saints arrive to save souls. The Deathwatch arrives to close the incident. You do not hold the front line. You do not inspire the population. You do not tell the governor, everything will be fine. You go down, where communication disappears, where the map stops matching the corridors, where the walls breathe. That is where it becomes clear why the Imperium needs an organization like this. Because no single chapter knows everything. Not one of them has cataloged every Xenos threat, mastered every countermeasure, survived every kind of encounter the galaxy has available. The Deathwatch does not claim to either, but it collects like the knowledge that exists in the warriors who carry it and puts those warriors in the same squad. Together, the kill team goes somewhere an army could not. An army would advance, die block by block, request artillery, then the fleet, then evacuation, then permission to classify the whole operation as a heroic defeat. The kill team goes straight to the source. Minimum noise, maximum result. And in the Imperium, the fewer reports filed, the closer you are to something having actually worked. If you make it back, the long vigil continues. One mission does not end anything. There are too many Xenos threats, too many forgotten worlds, too many colonists who found a strange metal temple and decided not to report it until the temple started answering. Years pass, sometimes decades, and at some point an unpleasant thing happens. You begin to understand the others, not agree with them, not adopt their methods wholesale. Understand, The Ultramarines' planning gets the team out of a trap the Wolf's instinct alone would have missed. The Wolf's instinct catches something the plan didn't account for. You stop being surprised by this and start expecting it. When the long vigil eventually ends and you return to your chapter, if you return, the silver skull stays on your armor. It means nothing to an ordinary person. To your brothers, the details are visible. You check corners differently now. You react to the word cult before the sentence finishes. You request ammunition your company has never heard of. You propose a solution, and the room goes quiet because that maneuver clearly did not come from your manuals. They did not break you. They made you wider. That is why the Imperium needs the Deathwatch. Not just to kill Xenos. Any chapter can kill Xenos. To gather knowledge in places where the ordinary structure of the Imperium would collapse under the weight of its own seals. Then carry that knowledge back. The Deathwatch is called before the catastrophe has a name. When strange metal gates are found on a distant moon. When a governor's loyalty metrics improve far too sharply. When a merchant vessel returns without a crew, but with suspiciously clean corridors. When an inquisitor reads a report, closes it, reads it again, and for the first time in years says, "Call the watch," the armory opens again. Warriors with different heraldry on their shoulders stand in the drop bay again. The brother next to you, once again, looks like a problem someone accidentally assigned as the solution. The Inquisitors speak briefly because long explanations usually mean half the people present will later be executed for knowing too much. You put on your helmet, black left arm, your chapter's colors on the right shoulder. 2 oaths, 1 suit of armor. Below someone is praying for salvation. A terrible mistake. The drop pod begins its descent. The long vigil continues.